Welcome in, builders. This week we are taking a look at Caelum, Eagle Kings. Caelum is a majocracy of winged humanoids who inhabit the highest mountain peaks. They are the offspring of the Yazatas, semi-divine beings of an earlier age. Three tribes served the Yazatas in ancient times: the Kavi, the Aryas, and the Myras. But some were led astray by wicked Manias and Devas. With the corruption of the purifying flame of the Devas, as well as the Yazatas, were banished from this world. With the disappearance of the Yazatas, the three tribes were dispersed and fled their homelands. But when some Yazatas re-emerged from hiding, the three tribes gathered and settled in the high mountain range, where the last of the Eagle Kings resided. The former tribes are now known as the Tempest Clan of Spirehorn Mountain, the Raptor Clan of Raven's Vale, and the areas of High Caelum. The Spirehorn Caelums are partially resistant to cold and lightning. The Raptorians are strong and attuned to earth, but lack the elemental resistance characteristic of the other clans. The area once lived in the land of the White Forest, where the winters last for 10 months. They still live in the coldest mountain peaks and are unaffected by low temperatures. Their priestesses try to purify the taint of the Davis and are keepers of the sacred flame of the White Forest. The area seraphs craft magical ice that many Caelums use instead of regular metal. The ice tempers with low temperatures, and heavy ice armor is more durable in cold climates than in warmer ones. All weapons crafted from the ice are magical and capable of harming magical beings. The Caelums are skilled archers and prefer hit-and-run tactics, even though they do have some heavy troops, such as mammoths. For national features, we have our race is a flying, partially cold resist, partially shock resistant, and we prefer cold scales +2. All of our troops and commanders are all Caelums, I guess except for the mammoth that a few of our guys ride. For military, we have flying units, we have skilled archers, and we have mammoths. Our magic is very strong air and a tiny amount of water, earth, death, and fire. I think we can random up to a level 2 in a couple of these, and that is as high as those other ones go. For priests, we are average. We do have a recruitable Holy 2, and we have guardian spirits. For scales and blessings, we have a cold limit of +1. Building-wise, we use the standard forts of the era. So, relatively vanilla-ish compared to other early era nations, with the big caveat of essentially all but 2 of our recruitable things are flying. And as we all know, mobility and the ability to get around the map quickly and to strike behind the lines, to jump over another army perhaps and grab a throne, very, very powerful. Also very hard to defend against because they could be anywhere. So when you're up against Caelum, you often find yourself having to move very deliberately, having to just stop and build up forts so that they can't take key points. And that just goes to show how strong they are. Compared to something like Xibalba, where the Xibalban individual troops are not particularly strong, our troops are actually pretty good for flyers. We have some very usable troops here, and I think we will see how good that these are. For sites, we have 3 different sites. We have the Palace of the Eagle Kings. This gives us our Sacred as well as our cap-only Big Mage, along with 3 air gems and a water. We have the Spirehorn Mountain, which gives us a Sacred Archer that we can recruit in the capital, as well as another air gem. And we have Raven's Vale, which is, again, some more of our Sacred Warrior choices, along with an Earth Gem. So, pretty decent income, very notable for just an absolute ton of air income. As for units, Caelum has a large variety of units, although in practicality, you're probably not going to use a lot of these. Let's take a look. First up, we have the Raptorian Militia. This is a militia unit. This is the base chassis for the Raptilians, so 11 HP, 10 strength, 9 attack, 8 defense. They are flying. They're a spear unit that has a leather hauberk. They only have 9 morale. This is your basic militia with the one bonus that they can fly. Next up, we have the Spirehorn Militia. Again, it's a common militia unit. Note we went down to 10 HP here. This is the base chassis for the Spire troops. They have shock resist 5, cold resist 5, and are flying. Also of note, even our lowly militia here has a length 3 ice spear, which is piercing and has magic damage. Very nice. Next up, we have the area light infantry. These are our more cold resistant troops, the area. And they also have flying and ice armor 1. Ice armor 1 means that the colder it is, the more protection you get, and the warmer it is, the less you get. So if you look at protection, I don't believe that's taken into account here. So you can plus or minus up to the heat scales on top of that. But protection 8 on a light infantry is not terrible. And if you added 3 more natural protection, I think this counts as natural protection. Either way, it should give you 11 because it should stack straight on that low value. So pretty darn nice here. For 11 resources and 9 recruitment and 10 gold, very usable troop here. Very usable troop. 11 attack with 12 damage. This is a lance, so you get that first strike bonus. Pretty usable. Next up, we have the area infantry. It is the same guy, except for now we have an ice blade, which is a length 1, attack 11, slashing magical damage with 14. Otherwise, they're wearing the same stuff. Our hit points are down to 9, so a little weak on that side. Overall, I think I prefer the longer weapons than the short ones. You still have the magic, but you have the benefit of either not being repelled or getting to repel, which would help these guys out quite a bit. Do note here that 11 protection, 10 for the body, 15 for the head, so averaged out, so to speak. But with the ice armor, this can go up even more. So these guys are actually pretty heavy troops if you can keep them in the cold. Next up, we have the Raptorian Warrior. This is our stronger guy, so 11. He's got that 11 HP. I don't think you're ever going to use these guys. I think the cheaper cost, the addition of possible higher protection. I guess if you're in like high heat, maybe you take these guys because the penalty on the other one would be pretty painful. But generally speaking, I don't think Reptilian Warriors are going to see too much use. Spirehorn Archer. This is a pretty decent archer, actually. So 12 precision is on the high end of just recruitable archers. We do have a magic melee weapon. That's actually surprisingly useful. It's not uncommon that something sneaks into your archers because they have ethereal or etc., etc. That magic weapon can be good for. Popping personal mist form, things like that. And we have a pretty accurate short bow, so not too bad. These guys, they're all right. They do have nice protections, which you never know when that's going to come in handy. And they also have storm immunity, so they can still fly around during storms. Next up, we have the Spirehorn Warrior. I think these are probably the favorite infantry recruit. We are 10 gold, 7 resources, 9 recruitment, so pretty dang cheap. We get the 5 shock, the 5 cold resist. We have storm immunity, and we're the flying, our base chassis here. And we have an ice lance, length 3, attack 11, does 13 magic piercing damage. I think a cost to performance is very good on these guys. That's enough damage that add in the extra damage from a charge bonus. I think you're often seeing kills on that first one. And unlike, say, again, the Zabulban troops, you're strong enough after that initial hit to still fight. You're not just relying on that charge hit to get to all of your kills. I think this is probably your best infantry troop. Next up, we have the Blizzard Warrior. Now, these move over to cap only. These have an ice knife and a frost bow. The frost bow here, it's a short bow, and it has the extra effect of on hit, it can freeze. Gives you 10 cold magic fatigue damage. It's armor negating. Not bad, not bad. Because it's cap only, they're a little hard to mass. They do have a high recruitment point cost, but otherwise they're not super expensive. So I could see getting a group of these, especially if you have like a specific thing you want to try to counter with fatigue damage. So like big giants that are nice to hit with arrows. Maybe, assuming we're not talking Niflheim, maybe you can fatigue them out using these guys. So interesting use here. And again, not really breaking the bank for kind of a cool archer. Next up, we have the Ice Clad. I don't tend to get these guys because of the cost. I could get 2 or even 3 of any of the other guys, so I don't generally go with this. I don't like grindy combat on these guys. I mean, 9 HP, even though they have pretty good protection, it's not going to be uncommon that they take a hit and it's going to be like a crippling hit. That being said, though, they do have a very strong ice armor, so if you're in cold 3 or cold 4, the protection's real on these guys. And if you're fighting weak troops that are going to struggle to get through protection, these can be very, very hard to deal with. And note, they're still flyers. So we could fly into the back lines, and it's not usual that you have heavy infantry in the back lines. So things that are guarding in the back usually are like wounded troops or lighter troops or some archers. Usually you're not having a big two-handed guy being the guard in the back. So these can be really hard to deal with. Interesting strategy, if nothing else. Next up, we have the Tempest Warriors. These guys, again, not cap only. They have storm immunity and otherwise the basic Spirehorn traits. Again, though, because the other guys are so cost efficient, it's hard for me to justify 21 recruitment points for essentially the same lance, a little bit better stats. I think the numbers make up for the cost with the Spirehorn Warriors. But I could see using these. Again, this is fine protection for early age. We're pretty good with this spear. A good troop all around. Next up, we have the Mammoth Rider. These are not cap only. Mammoth Riders are pretty decent. 10 magic resist is actually relatively high for an animal. 10 morale is decent for an animal. We are size 9. We have 6 protection. Pretty interesting. They have storm immunity for some reason. I guess if we want to give our mammoths flying, we could fly in storms. That'd be terrifying. I think that mammoths are really important for Caelum. Caelum struggles to get the ball rolling, and with some good use of mammoth expansion, you can get that ball rolling. And once you get going and you can afford your mages and you can afford the swarms of troops, you can be quite hard to deal with. And we have a couple different attack vectors, which means we're not a one-trick pony like some nations can be. The downside is, of course, as a trampler, when they decide to retreat, they're going to squish everything on their way out. On the bright side, though, you can set yourself up so that your leadership's not going to be in that line where they're going to retreat, and your other warriors, maybe you could attack rear, and so they're not going to be in the way either. So do note, like with all tramplers, double-edged sword a little bit, but I do feel this is pretty decent. The archers also can fire while moving. I wouldn't count on these guys to do anything, but hey, I'll take some extra arrows in the air, sure. And ironically enough, if this gets into melee, a 12 attack magic piercing damage is not the worst thing ever. That makes it pretty good. One of the things that can be hard to deal with is ethereal or mist form troops. Well, these guys will cut right through that while they're getting tramples off on this mammoth. So can be pretty good. Has snow move too, which can be nice because everyone else that we have flies, and we're definitely taking cold scales. So it keeps him relatively mobile. And with 15 cold resistance, he's not even going to mind. He's just chilling. Next up, we have 3 more cap-only units. We have the Cavi Archer. This is our Sacred Archer, a pretty rare thing. There are not a lot of nations with Sacred Archers, and even more nations that have bad Sacred Archers. This one, I would say, is on the better end of that scale. We do have shock resist, we do have cold resistance, we have storm power, so we get more powerful during storms, and we have storm immunity. One thing to note here is that in Dom 6, Wind Guide negates penalties for arrows in storms. So even in the past, this didn't really do well because we often want to fight in storms. But if you combine a storm with Wind Guide, it keeps these guys strong. And you'll definitely win archer duels in a case like that. So I can see an argument for doing an archer build. It's just cool. I don't think it's for me, but if you're looking for a nation that can do archer builds, I think this is a pretty decent one. Go scales, go a little bit of extra precision, maybe a weapon bless of some sort, and I think you're off and running with these guys. Next up, we have the Area Temple Guard. And again, Sacred Unit. Now, this is a non-flying unit. They've cut off their wings to show how dedicated they are to guarding this place. 15 cold resistance, ice armor 2, and they have bodyguard. Ice armor 2 is pretty darn good here, so that could be up to 6 more protection. That's a pretty strong unit, protection-wise. I think these guys are fine. I don't think sacred troops are really our best strategy here. I think we're looking for scales or maybe a mage bless or thug bless even before we're looking at like this. They're not super massable. We only have cap only sacreds and some minor summoning that we can do. So unfortunate, because I think this is a pretty cool unit. Finally, we have the Myra Warrior or Myra Warrior. Can only be recruited in the capital. These guys are sacred flying, they're stealthy, and they have pillager. For 23 recruitment points, I'd rather just have 3 of the Spirehorn Warriors, frankly. Maybe if you're looking at using pillager, I could see a couple groups doing that. Maybe that could be something kind of interesting. We used some pillaging in our Ubar stream, and it was pretty decent. It's more of hurting the enemy than it is helping yourself. So it's like, I'm going to raid them with the assumption I'm not keeping this territory. So I'm going to add as much unrest and pop kill as I can on my way through just to damage their economy after they retake it. Not something I've done a ton of, but I see the value in this guy. And do note, they fly. So one of the nice things there is you're pillaging. Hey, look, that army's coming to stop me. Well, I'll just fly away and they can't catch me. So that could be kind of handy. Overall, I would say for expansion, I think it's Mammoths and Spirehorn Warriors with maybe a few Spirehorn Archers mixed into that. And I think that's the go-to for expansion. Heroes, Commanders, and Prophet. For heroes, we only have 2. We have the Unwinged. This is a Awe with Priest level 2. They are really good leaders. They're magical beings, and they are inspirational. So you're getting a lot of morale from these if you get one. Otherwise, not particularly useful. They don't fly, so they slow down armies. Yeah, not too much to say with these. If you get one, you can lead an army around. Maybe he leads your mammoths with all that extra leadership. That'd be pretty nice. Do note you have the magical being vulnerabilities. That could be a problem. Having Oz fine, but it's not like this is a thug chassis or anything. And we have Ahu the Kavi, at least a little bit better. We're a flying priest level 2. We have the storm power and storm immunity. Again, it's one dude. If nothing else, he's got an enchanted bow, and you can fire rear because he's a commander. Okay. I mean, it's okay. I don't think there's much to write home about these, unfortunately. For our commanders, we have, again, a pretty large variety here. We do have a scout, a Caelum scout. For 35 gold, I will definitely take a 55 stealth flying troop. Good scout here. And I don't know why you do it, but he has a magical weapon that he's not terrible with. So he's a well-equipped scout, actually, and not for a super high premium. I guess the resources are a bit high, but I'm glad the gold cost didn't go up. So I think these guys are perfectly fine. I like these guys. They're good. Do note they also can ferry around gems pretty effectively for you. They have enough protection they might survive like a random hit from something if a ritual hits you while you're transferring gems or something. Yeah, pretty good. Next up, we have the Sastar. This is our 100 leadership leader. He has the shock resist, the cold resist, flying, and storm immunity. He's got the magic ice blade. So nice that our leadership has a magic blade. Again, just helps him defend himself against some of the stuff that tends to kind of try to slip in and assassinate commanders later on. And he's decently protected. He does have a shield. I like this guy. I guess it should be noted, I didn't mention with our other troops, we are size 4, so you're only ever fitting 2 guys into a square. Do take that into account. Your attack density is a little bit low. I think he's also probably your prime candidate for Prophet. He's a good leader, so he can lead a group around, and he doesn't have anything else to do, which is like, cha-ching. Shield, armor, mobility, good. Those are all good traits. Can lead troops, which is nice. Sometimes you have prophets that can't lead troops around, so you need an additional leader. This just saves you 1 leader in the early game. Next up, we have the Spirehorn Seraph. These guys at first glance look kind of unimpressive. Air 1, 7 research for 52 gold a year. However, they are dirt cheap. 65 gold with only 52 upkeep. These are great. Magic scales, some inspirational researcher, different boosters for research. This is a really efficient researcher, actually. And in addition, once you get the ball rolling, you're going to probably want to be rushing Storm on this nation. So with Storm, we can Storm Power once, and then that gets us to Air 2, and then we can Lightning Spam. Lightning Spam's totally usable. Totally usable. And we have troops that have some shock resistance at least, so it's a little less painful when you get hit. You might be able to survive. Or when some of the AoE stuff comes out, you might be able to survive some of the lighter hits. We do have storm immunity, so we're not going to suffer greatly with our precision during the storm, which can kind of be a problem with some other nations and their lightning casters. So very nice here. And with our high air income, I strongly suggest getting early Alquills and dropping an Alquill on this guy. So your research here is actually probably going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 12 to 15 with the different various bonuses that you're probably going to get on this nation. So a very nice researcher that still can do combat. Great combination there. Next up, we have the Area Seraphim. This is a priest level 2, which is pretty nice. We are not the super duper. Let me find my boy. Not you. Where's my Spirehorn warrior? You. 10 morale. That's not terrible for a line troop, but it's not amazing either. So it sure would be nice if we could get a couple Sermons of Courage before they go in, and this guy can provide it. He's also stealthy, and pretty darn stealthy, which is nice to be able to fly in, move around. You could do some sight searching if you have a minute. I tend to get one of these guys relatively early, and his main job is to build infrastructure, and then while he has to wait for money or something, he does a little bit of preaching, he might do a sight search, or he'll run over to an army and just help out. So a pretty versatile priest, actually. And really, for a priest level 2 that has a magic path and is stealthy and can fly, 150 gold is not bad. 60 gold upkeep, not bad. A pretty darn good guy here. Next up, we have the Harab Seraph. This is a air death crosspath, and he does get a random of air, earth, or death. I believe this is our only earth access, or our cheapest earth access. Again, if you get a death 2, definitely go out sight searching. You may go out sight searching with an earth 1 just to get some of that income rolling. Otherwise, I don't think for 128 gold, this is not going to be a researcher, 160 to recruit. So I think you're going to be pretty limited with the amount of these you get. I will note that they have the cross paths to do corpse band construction, and corpse band are pretty good frontliners, and you don't have a ton of things that are required for your air gems. Now, you might do some Alquills, you might do some spells, you might do some elementals, but remember, our base income is 4. So you can make corpse band construction very efficient. Very efficient. So 3-4 of these guys doing corpse band on repeat might be worthwhile to give you some nice blocker troops that you just don't care about. Can be very valuable. Next up, we have the Area Seraph. This one has Air 2 and Water 1. This is pretty notable because with Summon Storm Power, you're up to Air 3, and now you can Thunderstrike spam. And Thunderstrike is a very powerful spell. So you're going to do something like either Personal Mist Form, Storm Power, or you're going to do Aim, Storm Power, and then you're just going to spend hopefully all of your fatigue dropping lightning bolts or thunder strikes onto the enemy. And for a pretty dedicated combat mage, 175 gold is very affordable. 140 is a smidgen high, but I think for a very usable mage, this is a pretty fair price. I like these guys. Also, like everyone else, we do have some cold resistance, and we are flying, so handy there. Next up, we have the Mira Ahu. This is a cap only, and this is basically your raider leader. I don't think I would get one otherwise. I mean, I guess they could build temples, but I like the other guy for stated reasons. Yeah, you are required to have a pillager leader if you want to do the pillage command with troops. So if you're going to go that route, you will need a couple of these. So you're going to probably lead 50 of them around. Yeah, could be usable. They only cost 1 recruitment, so you can grab 2 of them or grab 1 in a scout at some point. They're okay. They're okay. And finally, we have the big boy, the Eagle King. This is a cap-only slow-to-recruit mage. However, Air 4. That means baseline, no buffs, you can cast Storm for 1 air gem. Realistically, you're probably going to want to use 2 because you'd like to be awake after you do it, but this is powerful. Air magic isn't as good as it used to be because it had a lot of the utilities stripped out and given to glamour, but it's still a good combat path. I mean, there's a reason that everyone says take shock resistance on your bless. Well, it's because of how powerful those air spells are. Once you have a few of these guys, you can have one of them do the storm. You could do something like Fog Warriors or Mist Army to your troops. That's very hard for some nations to deal with if they don't have magic weapons. And your other ones could be dropping Mist. They could be dropping Wind Guide. They could be dropping Air Shields. They could drop just Thunder Strikes or even bigger battlefield air magic. This is very, very powerful. A very strong mage, but you pay for it. 555 gold. 222 is actually not that bad for this level of mage for upkeep. And you have a 10% chance to maybe eke out an extra little bonus. I think in the game behind me, I recruited like 10 and I ended up with like 2 that had an extra. I think we had one that had fire and I think one that had water too. The water and earth, especially the water, I don't see a ton of use for. The earth, maybe, especially if you get an earth 2 guy, then he could earth power and just do that for the extra fatigue recovery. But otherwise, I think they're very focused in on their air. They are priest level 2s. They are sacred. They do have awe. They have shock resist. They have cold resist. They're magic beings. They fly and they have storm immunity. Some people like to try to thug these guys. So 19 HP, 13 protection. I don't like it. 555 gold for a thug is too much. You're relying on personal mist form, iron skin. Can we quicken self, maybe, I suppose? Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. Now, maybe under very specific circumstances, I could see it, but I think the only thing I would look at is, do I need that guy, or could I just mistform this guy and have him do something? Now, admittedly, this is definitely not a thug chassis, but I'm not convinced that this guy is, frankly, either. Now, if this was 250 gold and he had Air 2, I'd be much more interested. Much more interested. But not for this price. Not for me. As previously mentioned, I think your main leader is your profit target. Again, like I always say, you could put it on an expensive mage to get rid of their upkeep, but in this case, this isn't super painful. You're not going to get these guys too early. Your first one's probably going to go out site searching. Yeah, I don't think this is the call for him. So I think it lands on this guy. Or maybe this is a nation where you do your profit on a stealther and you do some stealth preaching or something like that. Maybe I could see that. 55 stealth, flying, the other benefits he has. Maybe. 9 HP though. I'm just saying 9 HP. That's a little iffy. National items and spells. As for national items, we have no national items. As for national spells, we actually have several different ones. In Thaumaturgy, at Thaumaturgy 6, we have Parting the Soul. Very interesting spell. Now, Thaumaturgy 6 is a bit of a commitment. I mean, you're basically required to get Storm. So we're already going Alt 5. Well, you're going to want a lightning spell to throw, so you're going to need Evo 2 or probably 4, because you probably want Thunder Spam. You need Summon Storm Power to do that, so you're going Conj 2. I've already listed off a lot of research. That's basically required. But if you can, this is a nice spell. It is a range 30, 100 accuracy. It's only 40 fatigue, so even your little guys, who are going to be your Death, Air, Crosspath guys who can cast this, can get 3 of these off. And it hits with Paralysis, which is magic resistant negates. But even if they resist the paralysis, it summons in 3 Blackhawks. So if you had 5 of these guys, that's 15 Blackhawks. Like we saw in Ubar, just throwing some random flying garbage into the back lines is devastating to scripts. So let's say you have 5 of these guys, 15 hawks, and you can do that 3 times. So 45 hawks. It's going to mess up mages. It's going to mess up archers. It's going to mess up formations. And you have the benefit of maybe you get a paralysis off. And then when your lance guys arrive, they get just a free hit. That's pretty decent. That's pretty decent. Next, we have Thaumaturgy 7. At Thaumaturgy 7, this is the beginning of our problems. When we look at Conjuration next, we have a lot of things, a lot of national spells that we're just not equipped to cast. We don't have anybody close to this. I don't even think we have, let me double check myself when I'm saying this. I don't even think we have Fire Death Crosspath. No, we do not have that natively. So you're looking at a pretender to cast this. So Call of the Drugvunt. This is a ritual attack spell. It basically makes brigands and some devas attack a province. It also does a lot of extra unrest. I'm not sold on this one. Again, we have a lot of research to do. Thaumaturgy 7 is not close. I will say, if you're going to go for Dark Skies, which gives people penalties to morale for being in your dominion, and gives you some darkness penalties, or you're going to go for Galegate. Galegate is the air gem generator, and it's a good one. Generates 20 air gems a month, and air elemental size +1, and you get extra hurricanes that hit the world, and the better the caster of the spell is, the better chance to hit somebody that's not you. So Galegate is really powerful. Like, air elementals aren't what they once were, but they're not terrible either. Especially if you're fighting people who they can trample, and now we have size +1, so we're better at it, and struggle to break ethereal. If you're not ready to fight air elementals, they're very hard to deal with, and this just makes them worse. And with 20 air gems a turn, you could pump out a lot of air elementals. So interesting, but 8 in Thaumaturgy, I don't know if that's happening. I just don't know if that's happening. On the bright side, Air 5 is very doable. We can build air boosters, which are kind of hard because they require 4 air, straight out of the box with our Eagle King. So that is a bonus there, to be sure. And I don't think that Galegate's a highly competitive one, so you'll probably get it if you go for it. Next up, we have several things in Conjuration. We have Herd of Elephants. Elephants don't have cold resist, and they're more cowardly than your mammoths. I think that one's out. We have Ambush of Tigers, and we have Herd of Buffalo. Let's take a look at those. So tigers are interesting in the fact that they have 50 dark vision. So if you have a reason that you would want some dark vision, sure, if you've got some nature gems, but no, we don't have a nature mage. So you're looking at an independent or your pretender casting any of these 3 spells. As mentioned, these elephants are garbage compared to our mammoths. I think they're just straight out. And Buffalo, I actually like Buffalo. They are tramplers, but they're tramplers who go berserk. And they have enough HP that they generally go berserk before they have morale issues. So I like them a lot. If I'm going to summon in a trampler and I have the option for Buffalo, I'm totally going Buffalo. But again, we don't have native nature magic, so that can be a bit on the difficult side. After that, our next one is at Conjuration 5. We have Call Ahurnai, we have Call Yazatas, we have Call Devas, we have Call Javi. Now, again, we don't have any native astral. We have exceedingly low death, and we have exceedingly low fire, and that's not even on the same chassis. So if you're going to go for any of these summons, you're probably looking at building a pretender to do it. And I'm not sold on it. As much as I always fall into the trap of trying to do national summons, this one I'm just like, okay, this is too far. Winter, you have gone too far with this spell list. Let's just take a look at the rest of them, and then we'll go over what they summon. So at 6, we have Call Celestial Yazid. We have Call Yata. At 7, we have Call Raveshi. At 8, we have Call Amesha Spinta. We have Call Greater Deva. We have a ton of those. We have so many summons that they had to add 2 sites to our capital to show them all. So, yeah, that's a lot. I think if you are going to go for these, personally, I would go for the astral versions. The Devas and their ilk are kind of the demon variety, so they tend to like unrest and heat and things like that, things that we generally don't love. So here's the Deva that you could summon. They do have fear. That's pretty nice. They are demons. They have fire resistance and shock resistance. They have chaos power, but we're probably going scales, and we're probably going scales with order, so that's going to nerf them quite a bit. We already have magic lances, so we don't get anything there. I'm not 100% sold on those. Conversely, the Yazad, I like these ones more. These are summoning with Astral, which I think is better on a pretender than trying to go Death Fire. These have Awe, they have Storm immunity, they're flying, they have a magic lance, and they're very good with it. And they're wearing heavy armor. Fireplate, a half helmet, and a buckler. That's pretty heavy darn armor. And they're still relatively mobile, and all that armor doesn't actually encumber them very much. I don't know how they got away with 2 encumbrance Fireplate, but there it is. So I think these are more interesting, but again, you don't have any native astral income, and you don't have any native astral mages. So how many astral pros are you actually going to get? So just keep that in mind as we go through all of these. The Ahurani is one that may be doable. 2 astral and a water to do the summon, and you get a water 2 mage that is also a priest 1. They have a high underwater regen, so maybe you just get underwater and you water elemental spam since you're already going up conjuration. They do have gift of breath, so they could bring some of your troops down underwater. Ice weaponry and leather do not rust, so you do have troops who could go down there. Now, they're going to be terrible, but they could stand in front of you, giving you time to cast water elementals. They have recuperation themselves, and they have disease healer. Pretty rare. Nice to have, especially because we have some very high-priced mages, and it really stinks if they get diseased and die, so this can help you with that. Beyond that, yeah, again, some of the demons we can summon, they have Dream Seduction. Sure, I guess. I'm not certain that you're ever going to actually pull any of these off. Deva of Frost and Snow. You got some Death Water cross-pathing. Ayata here, again. These all look really cool, but I just don't see your ability to get them. Ajahi is kind of like a Succubi. Has Spy, has Dream Seduction. Going over to our other set. I mean, look at all these summons. Now, a lot of these come off of the same summon spells. You get like 1 of 4 or 1 of 6 at random. So like you'd get 1 of these 6 or you'd get 1 of these 4. And they all just have various different pathing, etc., etc. But I just don't see it being practical. You're going to have to make your pretender to do it if you're going to do it. I'm just not sold. I do want to call out the Ancestral Fravishi. I believe this is a similar chassis to our Celestial Guardians. I haven't 100% worked out who all can get those, but randomly in some combats, you'll get your Celestial Guardian that was mentioned during our national features, and it's essentially, I think he comes as an Air 1, Astral 1, Ethereal troop. So I think it's this chassis, but he's way nerfed down here. But it's a free mage. If you have body ethereal, they tend to cast that, or they tend to cast like aim or air shield because they don't have high pathing. But a free mage, I'll take that. Sure. Not something you can really count on or build for though. Like if it was every single combat, I think we'd be talking a different story because you could use those guys to like ethereal bless mammoths, but you can't count on it. So I'm not sold. The Spinta here, again, cool stuff. Like here's a high invulnerability guy. He spreads order. High earth path that we don't normally have. That's cool. Here's a 5 nature. That's cool. So if you go down the route of astral, you can get some magic diversity that you otherwise don't have, but I'm just not sold. You just don't have the ability to site search, and you don't have anyone to cast the spells on these. So a little disappointing on that. In other spells, as previously mentioned, Storm. You are going Storm. Alteration 5 is a definite want. Arrow Ward is nice to have, although Storm will pretty much solve arrow problems that you've got. If the game goes on, Army of Mist is like a win condition, practically. you can give your entire battlefield mist form. Spire warriors with mist form are incredibly hard to deal with. They'll get that lance charge, so they've already killed a bunch of your dudes, and then they could just repel. And if they do get hit, they get hit for 1 damage. So they are very hard to deal with mist form, and you can easily cast that. It's only air 5. You can, out of the box with an Eagle King, for 4 gems, you can cast this. And you probably can get a booster, so now you're down to 3 gems. A bag of winds or wind bag or whatever, now you're down to 2 gems. Like, this is very, very doable. In Conjuration, I do think Summon Storm Power is an early want, and I think if you're going there, you're going to go to at least 3 so you can get Air Elementals. Air Elementals are still good, even though they are nerfed. They can be hard to deal with, and we have a researcher that is an Air 1 guy. So in an emergency, have those 10 guys fly over to the fight, and every one of them summons an Air Elemental and then retreats. Something like that. Not a good strategy, but again, it's nice to have break in case of emergency type things you can do, and that's pretty handy. Every one of our researchers can at least pop out 1 Air Elemental. If you can get Storm Power up, they could do 2 or 3. So, can be pretty helpful there. Out of Evo 2 for Lightning, I think is a very good early grab. If you're going to go higher than that, I think you're looking at Thunderstrike at 4. I think that's the play there. Beyond that, Wrathful Skies can be pretty good, but 15 armor negating shock, even your guys with having shock resist will die to this. So just know when you're doing this, when you want to be doing it. So you probably have an Eagle King. He's got some extra shock resistant, and maybe you have like corpse constructs with him or something. And you just drop this and you just wipe out an enemy army, hopefully. You probably would need 2 guys or Perpetual Storm up, because you're not going to be able to Storm and Wrathful Skies on the same guy. There's just too much fatigue. But still, the availability to do that is really nice to have. As mentioned, Perpetual Storm is really nice to get up. It just hurts everybody on the surface, essentially. Lowers the chance for ranged spells to be able to hit. Gives you the Storm, which frees up an Eagle King to start blasting right off the bat in combat. Construction, I think you definitely go 3 for Alquills early, and you probably go to 5 for Air Boosters. I think that's kind of a no-brainer on this nation. And our research is really good, but very efficient. So early Construction 3, go get some combat stuff, and then when you're looking for a big war, come back and get your Air Boosters. That's kind of my thought on that. For enchantment, I don't know. We already fly, so we don't need any of the flying stuff. We could spam Seeking Arrows if we thought that would be of value. Cloud Trapeze is nice for your Eagle Kings to be able to jump around. Maybe that's an argument for an Eagle King Prophet. Prophets who can teleport or Cloud Trapeze are very valuable. Thunder Ward is a nice combo for doing Wrathful Skies. You do have the slight chance to be able to cast Watcher. So if you need to patrol something out, that could be something. I don't know. I'm stretching here. I'm stretching. You do have Air 5 guys or you can get there. So Dome of Solid Air helps you protect from ritual spells being fired at you. I think that can be worthwhile if you've gone that high, but I don't know why you're going down enchantment that high. Thaumaturgy, as previously mentioned, Galegate is very interesting. If you want to go really into air elementals, I think that +1 size is very unique and really brings back some of the deadliness of air elementals. Okay, so let's bring all this together. So we are a highly mobile, pretty efficient troop nation. We have a very efficient researcher. We have a good combat mage. We have an excellent cap-only big spell caster. We can do Mammoth expansion. We have some heavy troops. We have some light troops. We have raiders, which is kind of unique. We have very high air income. So I think all that comes together as you're going to struggle a little bit to get the ball rolling. And the game behind us here, I did okay. I was slow but steady. I didn't have any bounces or anything to get some of my cap circle. I got an early second fort over here, and then I just started bumping into neighbors, which really held me back. On the bright side, because I'm cold, my mammoths could cross this river at any point, which was nice. And because I'm flyers, I could get over these closed passes with my other troops. So that was really nice mobility-wise. Some nations would look at this spawn point here and be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be misery. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. I have struggled just with the surround here. I had 4 people declare war on me. If I was to finish playing this test game, I would win. I think I'm at 8 points here. I'm in a war with Mickland, and he's got my last couple points. It's pretty easy peasy. One of your big benefits is I don't have to keep huge amounts of troops to defend a fort. If I see, down here it was Ulm, if I see Ulm marching towards this fort, I just fly my defenders from here down to here. And I can just arrive right in time. Flyers are good defenders. So if we look at these guys here, siege defense 1.0, siege strength 2.0 for just our main troop. That's great. 100 of these guys is 200 siege strength. That's pretty darn nice. So we are a very, very dangerous threat with high mobility. We don't have the best troops, but our mobility combined with really good magic is a very good combination. And I think Caelum does pretty well for themselves in the early age. Okay, let's take a look at pretenders. Caelum is blessed with a pretty good variety of choices here. We've got kind of the Middle Eastern ones, some of the, I think these, no, not Greeks, like the Middle Eastern ones, the Indian ones, a pretty darn good variety here. We are a highly mobile force, but we don't have any recruitable Holy Threes. So immobiles, I'm not really feeling it. I think Caelum wants scales in the early age. I could see some arguments for a Archer Bless or a Sacred Strategy, but I don't think that they're anything to write home about. They don't have recruit anywhere. Sacreds. Our sacred summons are hard to do and not high in number. So I think that all leans into scales. You could go with an expanding monster to try to rush your early expansion. I think you could go with like a dragon, like this guy right here. He's got lots of cold resist. He's not going to struggle too much. If you're careful with expanding with him, he does have 18 protection. It's too bad he doesn't have cold power. That would really juice this guy up. You've carefully expanded with him. Now expansion's over. He does have Dragon Master, so he can go home and summon Ice Drakes pretty efficiently for you. Ice Drakes are pretty decent. We do have heavy cold resist troops available to us, so we can breathe through them onto enemies. I don't know about you guys, but whenever I see Drakes on a throne, I clinch a little because who knows how many they're going to catch with their breaths. So could be a nation that actually can use a dragon, which is kind of nice. I don't know. I tend to think of this as a scales nation. If I was going to go immobile, I would probably look for cheapness. And I would probably look for something that my Eagle Kings would like. So precision, endurance recovery, or fatigue recovery. So like maybe a blood surge, maybe. Like we could go something like the Betil of writing. So we could grab a little bit of precision, a little bit of fatigue recovery, high dominion, so we don't have to worry about getting pushed back. He gives you some extra order. That could be interesting. He's at 180. That's fine. That's not too bad. Take him as dormant. In fact, you could even go full imprisoned on that. That'd work just fine. We could go with something like the Frostfather. He is really cheap, 100 points. He does have cold power too. You're not thugging your Frostfather though, so I never love that much. Let's take a look at what I did go with here. So this is Owlkeeper, the Great Sage. He is a dormant pretender. I went dormant because I just want those extra points. I went ethereal. Ethereal helps out our Eagle Kings, and whatever sacreds we do end up getting, ethereal's pretty universal for that. That'll help up until the point that basically you get Mist Army up. Keep them nice and safe for any of your sacred troops. If you have the archers, this will help you win archer duels. I wanted magic anyways, and I wanted astral anyways. You could try to alchemize some pearls and then do some remote site searching. for Astral and then use that to do bigger site searching. Maybe in my game behind me, it just never happened. But what I liked him for was high research for a nation that just needs a ton. He can teleport around to help claim thrones because we only have the one Holy Three. And he's got Inspiring Researcher. You can easily amass a lot of researchers. And one of the benefits that we have is our researchers are flying. So when you recruit them, it's only one turn to fly to your capital where you're probably sitting with this guy. And then he's going to give everybody a +1. And I think +1 is worth the one turn of flying and losing out on your base, 7 research. So in 7 turns, you'll make up for that move. And every turn after that is extra bonus. I quite like that. In the game I showed, I quite easily got to 200 to 300 research by year 2, and it was mostly just him and some researchers with owl quills. Pretty nice. For scales, I went a little low on Dominion. I wasn't really focusing on the Sacreds. They were just kind of whatever. 2 order, 2 production. I did go 3 cold, so very, very cold. I wanted to have the ice protection be really good, and I wanted to discourage all the heat nations to stay out. I didn't end up with any growth because I couldn't afford it. I needed 1 misfortune to be able to pay for all this, and 2 magic. So pretty good. The lowered resistances also tie into that thaumaturgy spell we have for paralysis. Maybe you get some use out of that, and this makes it a little easier to land. So I quite like this guy. I didn't see anything else that just really jumped out at me beyond generic monster expander. So your mileage may vary on that. As usual, I'm always really curious to see what other people like. I know people keep trying to sell me on Titans, but I haven't seen one yet that I was like excited for. So who knows? Maybe that'll change. So in conclusion there, I think Caelum's a pretty strong nation in the early age. There's not a ton of nations who really like cold. It's like you and Niflheim are like the 2 big boys. Niflheim would be challenging, but ironically enough, wouldn't you know, they have a shock vulnerability. Quite interesting there. So I think you're pretty darn strong. The cold is something pretty defensive for you. You can go a scales build. You have good rating, good mages, an all-around good nation. All that being said, I'm not very good with Caelum for some reason. I don't know. It's just not my style. I like grindy combat with magic support. So this is more of a, I don't want to say hit and run, but more of a light army, shock army type thing. No pun intended with our air magic. So let me know if you have other thoughts on that. I'm super curious there. If you've made it this far, if you could leave a like on the video, I always appreciate that. It helps it get shared out to more people so we can continue to have these great conversations about nations. And if you're not subscribed, maybe today's I've earned your subscription. If you like this and other pregame videos, one of the big perks to becoming a member of the channel is you get usually about a week of early access to the video before we premiere it or it goes live. And that little bit of money goes into the channel. It's allowed me to increase the production value of these videos and keep doing what I'm doing. I absolutely love this. Thank you everyone who supports the channel. And I hope to be able to keep doing this for you. All right, let me know in the comments, builders, what your thoughts are. And I look forward to seeing you on the Caelum stream.